YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, I am the Anonymous Prepper. Wanted to do a quick little video here going over a couple of quick items to be prepared for with this dark winter. Some critical little things I think that everybody should have in their homes in the event of, say, a lack of heating, or, if you're on a very tight budget and you got to make some very, very tight squeezes to stay warm or to have, electricity this winter. And this video will be short and sweet. It's not going to be nothing 20 minutes long, but just wanted to go over some of the basics of stuff I recommend to have. For one, you got to have, of course, a good lighting source. You got to have light. If I can get this thing to open. You got to have a good lighting source. This lantern here is nice and multi-versatile. Many different uses. Flashlight, emergency light. Nice and fancy. It does the job very well. Then also, of course, smaller, more compact. And what I like about this guy, you may not be able to tell, but it's actually magnetic. So you could stick it to your fridge or stick it on to something metal of your preference and all that jazz. Also, I love these little lights. They sell them at Dollar Tree. You have, your standard bright light. Flashlight. Works in a pinch. Then this one too. Basic and standard lantern. Nothing too fancy. But it's just like this one, just doesn't have the red lights, but they work really well. Always keep them in my preps. They come in handy. Coming over here. Now, if it's very, very cold, what's the first thing you look forward to during a cold morning? Especially some of us who lived out in the country for brief periods of time. When I was growing up, my grandparents lived in a very old school setting. Like, they had legit an outhouse with a moon in it from like the 1920s or even further back. Like, I don't know how long these things existed, but they had, the old school wood stove in the basement. Always was cold, and the first thing they always did is made us hot chocolate. So you got to have some good hot chocolate. Or what I like to do, I make a triple combo, as I like to call it. Take some of the good old Folgers, the instant coffee, some of this powdered cappuccino with the hot chocolate. Or if you're not big into the coffee or cappuccino, you also got your tea. All of these things come in handy in a pinch. Now, let's say you're in a very dire situation. What are you going to do to heat up the water to, make your drinks? Now, in a lot of cases, people have options, but a lot of us don't. Especially somebody like me who lives in an apartment where I can't just, hook up a wood stove in my place because, I live where I live right now, so I have to make do with that. So you have to think of an emergency option. Two options that come to mind. First one, of course, is a grill. If you have a grill, you can boil water that way. Though I wouldn't recommend it. In an emergency, if you absolutely had to, you could. But with propane, you want to try to conserve that as much as possible, which is why I come to this option here. The good old combo. You got to have your good old fuel, butane fuel, and one of these guys. It's a very simple hookup to your butane fuel. These are only like maybe $6. When I first heard about these guys, I thought to myself, $6. There's no way they're, any good. They're probably really cheap. They probably break immediately. I've taken that out on hiking for 3 years. I didn't use it, like a bunch of times, but like every time I'd go out hiking, if it was a cool morning, make a cup of coffee, it worked like a breeze without a problem. Also, of course, we also have, if you can get access to this, some good old Russian coffee. Now, a little more about power sources. Now, if you don't have heat in your house, you gotta have a way to stay warm. This first thing, it's corny and it's simple. I came across these a couple of years ago. I was very curious how well they worked. And I was very surprised that one of these bad boys actually gives off a decent bit of heat, especially on the high setting. But the best part, it's also a power bank, so you can charge your phone. Though with these, I recommend that, keep them for heat. Unless it's summertime, then you got another power bank you can charge up. But for winter, these guys work really good in a pinch. Now, another thing for heat, this is the old school one I learned about from my grandparents. It's the dumbest thing ever, but I still cannot believe these things actually work. And some people may have heard of these, but all it is taking 2 tube socks. First tube sock, you take a pound. Preferably, I always use pinto beans. They have to be dried. You put them in the sock, and then you take a second sock. After you tie off the first one, to note, place it inside, and then you tie it off as well. You pop that in the microwave for about 3 minutes. And I did a little test with this because I was curious. Because it actually has a variety of uses. You have your simple, if you have some shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, this thing works like a breeze. Now for overnight heat, that's the part that actually kind of shocked me. If you heat this up for 3 minutes in a microwave and get it nice and hot, and then you put it like on your left side or your right side, put a couple inches away from your body, and you have a nice tucked in blanket with you, this thing, it lasted me for about 6 hours total. And that's if you get it good and hot though, of course. If you do it right, this will keep you warm all night. Or if you're like somebody like me, I get cold feet a lot. You put it down by your feet, you'll be good for the whole night. Then also, let's see what else we got here. We'll go to this first. Simple canteen. People know about the old school trick of a hot water bottle. Boiling water in a hot water bottle. Kind of like this in a way. You can do this as a way to stay warm if you absolutely needed to, though I would prefer this method better with a tube sock. But this does work as well. Storing water, or you can make your coffee in this. Get it nice and boiling hot. Put it in your bag, your sleeping bag, your blankets, whatever, and you have some coffee for in the morning. It all depends, though, because some people like cold brewed coffee, some like warm, some like it hot. Every person's different. Of course, got to cover this as well. Hand warmers. Now, me personally, I'm 50-50 on these. Yes, they do work, but you get 10 hours. One of these guys, you can recharge them over and over and over, and you'll get easily a ballpark figure, probably like 1,000 hours. And that's being maybe generous a little bit, maybe even a little bit more than that. I'd have to find the box for that to double check, but say 1,000 hours. 10 hours, so you do the math. But these are good for a bug out bag. That's why I have these. I have 4 packs of these in each of my bug out bags. That way, if you got to get up and get out of Dodge, you have these already in there and you're ready to go. And speaking of drinks as well, another thing. I absolutely love this. It is the most simplest contraption I've ever seen. Because, if you need to make coffee, and you're in a get out of Dodge situation, or even at home if you don't have access to a coffee pot, this thing works like a breeze, let me tell you. Collapsible, carabiner, works like a champ. And 2 things left to go over really quick. Back to power sources. Now this guy, I don't see a lot of preppers talking about this. I have seen a couple, but I don't know if a lot of these people actually took the time to field test these things. This is a power bank with, I believe is it 4? Yeah, 4 solar panels. Not very big ones, but this thing, and I don't care what anybody says, because I actually field tested this too. This is one of my major items I always have with me. Charges pretty quick over the course of the day. You'll get like about a 30 to 40% charge over the course of a day if you have good sunlight. It's enough for an emergency. Or if you're at home and you fully charge this, because it has the option to plug it to the wall too. You can charge your phone. I've done my phone 6 times with it, and it still had 2 bars of energy left on it. So, I mean, it works pretty good. They have them on Amazon, different kinds. Just gotta do your research, make sure they're legit and they're good. And the last thing is, and I've mentioned this in comments, different videos, but emergency thermal blanket. The most simplest item you can have. And I mentioned this in a video, I think it might have been Canadian Prepper, or it might have been Full Spectrum. It was one of the two. But they were talking about, staying warm. Now these guys, I highly recommend, and this is what I've done with them. You could wrap yourself up and stay warm, of course, but if you're in your house and this is not a get out of Dodge situation, insulating your windows with these. I was very surprised. If you insulate your windows with these, they work really, really good. And then also as an emergency option too, you could layer this in your blankets. Like have, say 2 blankets on you, and then have this, and then have another blanket over top so it's not crunching around as much. An extra layer of protection. But for insulating, say, a warming room too, you put this on your walls, it really does work well. I was very surprised at this. Just wanted to make a quick little video about this, going over some of these critical items that I think everybody should definitely have, or something along the lines of that. Because we're going into the dark winter, folks. It's going to be very, very tough. And, we need to take the time now to prepare. Because especially over in Europe, I feel so bad for you guys, because when I was a teenager, I had to sleep, with no electricity, no water, sleep in the woods for 2 months during February up in the northeast of the States, and it was not fun. Digging out of dumpsters, freezing under a tarp in the woods. And, there's a whole story behind my life story with that. And it's something, if I can't get my main channel back up and running because of the whole limbo situation with YouTube, I'll have to make another video about it. But that's down the road for now. But I have to jump off here, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Anonymous Prepper, I am punching out.